Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lamont Weber, and we have joining us Mark Kimmel. It's a great honor to have him with us. We had hoped to have him join us via video, but the interference from what we can call those infected by the dark energy from the great catastrophe. And Mark will be telling us exactly what the great catastrophe is very shortly, has prevented that. So Mark is coming to us via voice. Mark, are you coming to us from Colorado?
No, I'm coming from Southern California.
Okay.
Yes, I live down what's called the Central Coast of California.
Well, Mark is the author of an amazing book that the listeners of Exopolitics TV will have heard of before, Aeon, Voices of the Nonphysicals, because in our interview with Sarah R. Adams recently, it turned out that Sarah R. Adams and the voices of the 15 non-humans in the book Aeon's Voices of the Non-Physicals were synchronistically giving identical or very congruent versions of a great catastrophe that happened here around Earth, owing to that Earth was in a very high dimensional, special, Christed planet, and because of portal-oriented or dimension-oriented experiments, had a catastrophic loss of Christed status and dimensionality. And Mark is an extraordinary person who comes out of the business world and founded and ran 3 of Colorado's most respected venture capital funds before he became an author of leading-edge transformational works such as Birthing a New Civilization, Transformation, Chrysalis, Icebreakers, Cosmic Paradigm, and now Aeon, Voices of the Nonphysicals, which features channeled communications from 15 non-humans on subjects ranging from the creation of the universe to who we humans on Earth really are and what our destiny is. So welcome, Mark Kimmel.
Alfred, it's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for a very nice introduction. I couldn't have done better myself. And I know the subject fairly well. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Before getting to my first question, which will be, what is the Great Catastrophe? And tell us more about that in depth. How was it that you navigated to being contacted by these extraordinary 15, and tell us the wide range of the 15 non-humans that you communicated with?
Let me preface this with just a little bit of, just a touch of background. I was an old businessman, old in that I had done it for a number of years and working with major corporations and, as you said, venture capital. And then in 1996, I basically turned my back on all of that and decided it was time to do something dramatically different. I had gone back to school to get a master's in psychology, and the first book spilled out of my computer as I was doing an academic paper. And so that's what happened, and that's how my first book, Trillion, showed up. I had to go back to school and spend quite a bit of time learning how to write a book, because that was not something I ever planned to do. But it turned out, and the book is a big success. It's been translated into 6 other languages, and what's interesting there is that was all based on extraterrestrials. And so that was my introduction to these non-physicals, if you will. And I've had a lot of extraterrestrial experiences. And then I started receiving messages from the extraterrestrials. So I started communicating with them. These are the beneficial extraterrestrials. And I can recall I had a website which I had put up to publicize these earlier books. And I can recall standing in my kitchen, and one of the extraterrestrials came in and said, hey, we have some information. We want to give it to you and put it on your website. And I said, are you crazy? I'm not going to do that. People will think I'm nuts. And of course, a month later, I was posting things on my website. And so on the website, there's about 200 communications between myself and various extraterrestrials. Then moving forward, all of a sudden these extraterrestrials began also to communicate, but I understood them to be non-physical. Now, my definition of extraterrestrial is they have some physicality to them. Well, all of a sudden I started communicating with those that had no physical. Call them archangels, if you will, call them spirits, call them ascended masters. They have a lot of different names that they go by. And so that started just a few years ago. I think the reason this all got going, Alfred, was that in my prior incarnation, I was on Andromeda. I was there for about 2,000 years. And I had picked up a residual, if you will, of some sort that enabled me to go and very easily communicate with these non-physicals. So Andromeda is a 15th dimension universe. Everybody in the universe is at 15th dimensions. So I was there in these prior lifetimes in the 15th dimension. And so there was some residual that came with me when I came to Earth. That enabled me then to go and communicate with the non-physicals. So you can see kind of how that happened. So the first book that really came to light in was Chrysalis, and then a couple years later, Cosmic Paradigm, and then Aeon is the most recent one. And what has happened here is that now Aeon is a book that basically was written by the non-physicals, and I just was mostly the scribe for the whole thing. But it's fascinating. It's stuff that I had never heard of before. These are beings that nobody else has channeled before, if you will. They are telling a story, and we can get into that story whenever you're ready.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'd like to jump in because that was the nexus between Exopolitics TV just a few weeks ago with Sarah R. Adams, one of our previous guests, and because you had very generously gifted me a review copy of your book, and I had started reading it, and lo and behold, on the very few pages grabbed my attention, because there it comes up with, look, this is your status quo, Earth. What occurred on Earth is the great catastrophe. So what is the great catastrophe, and when did it occur, how did it occur, and where are we now in the aftermath?
So let's go back and lay a little groundwork here to get to the great catastrophe. In the creation of the universe, Earth was created prior to the Milky Way galaxy. Earth was created and stood all by itself. It was this beautiful planet. It was it was the model, if you will, for the planets that were to be created in the Milky Way galaxy. And so what happened is next the Milky Way galaxy was created and Earth stood by itself. If you can visualize the galaxy as kind of a saucer-shaped thing and it rotates slowly, well, Earth was positioned on top of that so that it went and stood still while the rest of the galaxy rotated beneath it. So this is called the golden era of Earth. And that continued for a couple billion years. And it was at what I call 12th dimension, which means very highly conscious, very peaceful, very, they had what I am turning the schematic of source, which is love, peace, and unity with everyone. So Earth was the model for the galaxy, and that was the golden era. And then Earth went and the galaxy had been created by that time, and some of the other people, the other beings within the galaxy on other planets decided they wanted to experiment a little bit. And the experimentation was, well, okay, what if we go and put dense physicality into higher dimensions? What happens then? Or we take higher dimensions and force it into deep, deep physicality. Well, that didn't work too well. A number of planets had been destroyed in the process because they didn't work. But there were some planets that did survive. There were some, if you will, the souls from those beings. They decided they wanted to go and come to Earth. And the name of that planet where they came from was Atlantis. So they came to Earth with the idea that, okay, we'll be good. We won't do any more of these experiments here. And we will just go and peacefully live on the planet. And that worked for a while. And then they started doing experiments on Earth like they had done on their former planet. They're going to try to create something new. Now, I have to take one step back and say that the universe is created according to some sort of a grand plan, a blueprint, if you will, a dynamic plan. And so they were creating outside of that grand plan. And in doing that, they started to go and disturb the very physicality of Earth. They started disturbing the continents, the oceans, the atmosphere. And they were told then to stop the experiments, and they decided, no, we're too far down the way, and we're going to have to continue because the only way out of this is to continue the experiments and prove them to be a success. Well, somewhere along the line, there was, when you operate contrary to something, you create something that is dark. And so there was a dark energy that came from these experiments. Nobody's intention, it simply just happened. Kind of like a cancer being created. So there was a cancer. I look upon dark energy as a cancer, and it can infect individuals just like a cancer. So the experiments continued on Earth to the point that Earth went and began to fall apart. It went and almost self-destructed. Almost, not quite. But it went to the point of almost self-destructed, and then the non-physicals who had created Earth in the first place said, okay, time out, let's go and take a break here and figure out what we're going to do with this thing. And after about 500 million years, Earth was restarted as what we know a third dimension planet. Now, there are very few other third dimension planets in the universe. In fact, 99.9% of the rest of the universe doesn't even know what third dimension is. So we have this nice new third dimension planet. And it was then put into orbit around the sun. And you can kind of imagine what that was like, because the sun is there. It has all these other nice planets surrounding it, and they stuck planet Earth into it. So that, in short, is the Great Catastrophe and the restart of Earth as a third dimensional planet. So that's where we are now. We are a third dimensional planet, with the idea that, okay, we're going to start at third dimension, and we're going to work our way back up to 12th dimension, back to the golden era. And so we've been on this treadmill now for 500,000 years ago is when humanity finally was introduced, 500,000 years ago. And these were created, they were not related to the monkeys or animals or anything like that. These were beings that were created unique to Earth.
You know, this is such a remarkable book or collection of channelings with individual beings that I found that I just suspended held beliefs with everything else that I knew, because otherwise it would collide with all of the other structures and inner beliefs and inner theories that I had developed over time, ranging from the scientific canon through, you know, other channelings like the Urantia book to, you know, the accumulated other information that I had, because this is so radically different. How did you find yourself coping with that kind of difference? I mean, it throws around the word billion a lot when they should say trillion, right? I mean, how did you find that, where Earth being stuck in and, you know, all of that?
Well, I understand what you're asking, first of all. And yes, it's quite a departure from a lot of other things that have been developed. And all I can say, Alfred, is that these other ones have been based on scientific, investigations by a lot of humans and that type of thing. The information that I'm offering in this book comes purely from beings like the archangels, or like Zion. Zion says, hey, I was one of the ones that created the Milky Way galaxy. Or Actin, I was the one that took over Earth. And I went and fashioned Earth. And he goes through with some detail about how much fun it was to go and create things like the Grand Canyon and other aspects of Earth. So we have a guided creation here. But this is not religious at all. I don't do religion. But so we have a guided creation that is managed by these great beings of light, the ones that they created all the universe. And you understand as well as everybody how huge this universe is. We have billions of galaxies out there. They are the ones that did this creation. So I don't want to disagree with any of the other information. I'm just presenting what I know, what I have been given.
Right, and yet, at the same time, the information in Aeon is congruent with a lot of the other advanced information. It's just at a higher level. It's as though it's coming in. Okay, well, now you're ready for the higher level. That was my sort of take on it. Moving on now, just to show you, the next piece after the great catastrophe was a glimpse at Telos. Could you tell us about Telos? Telos.
Telos is a civilization of about 100,000 beings that live beneath Mount Shasta in California. There are a number of other locations around Earth where there are other inhabitants. And these are inhabitants that came to Earth. They are, if you will, leftover residuals from that golden era of Earth, billions of years ago. And they came and they said, hey, we'd like to have a place on Earth too. You went and created one for humans. Why not create one for us? And so there was a wonderful, and we have a number of people that have visited Telos, and you can find those. There's other books that have been written about that. But these are beings, they're human-like, however, they function at a higher frequency. So you and I would probably not be welcome there, simply because I'm not at that high frequency. I don't know about you, Alfred. You might be.
I didn't know about that.
Anyway, there are a number of other locations around the world where there are these. When I first went and I've known about Telos longer than I've known about Aeon and some of this other stuff. And when I first encountered that, it was like, I can believe in extraterrestrials, but people beneath the planet, that's really hard to believe. That's really tough. And so I struggled with that for a number of years. And there, however, is enough evidence from a lot of other authors that has come forward. And the fellow that has been communicating with me, Adamus, is one of the leaders of that Telos group. And he makes a lot of sense. That's all I can say.
Now, moving along here, I found your communication, or the communication that you had with regard to the Andromeda galaxy. You had mentioned that was your last incarnation. Extraordinarily interesting because because of the unusual nature of what are considered to be stars. Could you tell us about that?
Yes. I thought, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah, it's amazing.
When they brought that in, now that came in from Adriel, and Adriel had been communicating with me for about 10 years off and on, but I didn't understand who she was. I didn't understand that she was one of the overseers of the Andromeda galaxy. And so what now she's telling me is, okay, Mark, Andromeda galaxy is at 15th dimension. Now, Alfred, I have a faint memory of being at 15th dimension in Andromeda. I have that memory. I have a memory of deciding that I was going to, what they call there, lay down my body, because I wanted to go to Earth, because Earth looked like a really interesting place to be. And of course, the beings there said, Mark, what do you want to go to Earth for? Come on, you got a good life here. What do you want to go to Earth for? And so, anyway, so that's how that happened. And so the reason I have the ability to communicate with them is that I have this residual energy from Andromeda. So what has happened to Andromeda, it was much like the Milky Way galaxy at one time. And then the beings there continued to evolve, becoming higher and higher consciousness, higher energy, to the point where the individual beings started to glow with great energy. And then the collective started to glow so much that they decided, well, we have this world here, and it's as bright as the sun, so we'll just consolidate with the sun. So what we have now on Andromeda are what they call star planets. And they appear to be suns, but they are actually collectives of very high functioning individuals that are functioning at 15th dimension. And they are radiating so much energy that they appear to be a star, thus the star planet. And again, I have a faint, isn't that, I see you shaking your head. And
yeah, I mean, it's just astounding that a collective of individuals appear to be a star.
well, then, what's a star? If you go back to some of the earlier information from Zion, he tells you that it's not an atomic nuclear process at all. And so it's not beyond my imagination now to say, okay, this can happen. But to me, that just shows that not all the rest of the universe is necessarily like the Milky Way. It's not the other planets in the universe are not necessarily like Earth. There's great diversity, great diversity.
Now, moving on here, the Aeon, then the book Aeon, I'm just going to use that as a generic name for the book, talks about the Pleiades. Could you tell us about that?
Okay, ask that question again.
About the Pleiades.
The Pleiades? Okay,
Pleiades.
yes. Okay. Well, the Pleiades are a constellation, and you can see them in the night sky. And they are a star system that basically has been unaffected by the dark energy. Okay? The dark energy, it affected Earth, and it affected a number of other planets, but the Pleiades and the Sirius, which is the next thing you're going to want to talk about, were unaffected by that dark energy. They simply didn't allow it to penetrate. Now, the thing about dark energy is that you can go, and if you allow dark energy to intrude in your life, it'll come in. If you go and decide you don't want to have that, you can basically go and shut it out. And I know that I have been attacked a couple of times by dark energy, and I have successfully rebutted it. And I'm sure you have too. You've had instances where it just didn't feel right, and you said, go away, and it went away. So the Pleiades are a star system, several billion people, and they have remained aligned with what I call the schematic of Source. The schematic of Source is the grand plan, which says, all right, we're going to operate with perfect love, unconditional love, perfect unity. We're going to operate in harmony with each other. And so the whole constellation of the Pleiades operates in that way. And so does the Sirius, which is the next one. And Sirius is another constellation, highly populated, billions of people on both Pleiades and Sirius.
Now, bringing in from another source, this is some channelings and contacts that one of our Canadian lifelong NORAD officers had in 2010, prior to 2010, with what you could call the Regional Galactic Governance Council. It turns out that according to that model and that information, there's a Regional Galactic Governance Council consisting of the Pleiades, Sirius, and others. And so that you could see how, if that's the case, then the contiguous planets that had not been affected by the dark energy would then have gotten together to make sure that this great catastrophe and dark energy were contained and managed. And that's sort of the underlying rationale behind what may have brought together this universe governance function. Don't you think?
I think that's totally reasonable. Yeah. I haven't received any specific information about that, but I'm well aware of those other writings and information, and I find nothing inconsistent with what I have in Aeon with what's there. I think it's very, very consistent. I mean, if you have all of these different beings of light, if you have all these other planets that are basically benevolent, well, sure, they're going to get together because they don't want this dark energy infecting them. You know, nobody wants to have cancer, so they're going to say, we don't want this dark energy. Let's get together and make sure it doesn't happen.
Right. Now, moving on to a very interesting topic. There's the topic of souls and earth souls, but also the topic of oversouls. The oversoul makes an appearance here in a way that I really had not seen it elsewhere. Could you talk to us about, number one, the oversoul, what it is and its function, and number two, then, how the soul and the earth souls?
Sure. Let's go there. I think that's very interesting. Oversouls to me is something that is not spoken of a lot in other. You just don't see many references to oversouls that I have uncovered, or the references. If I look in the dictionary, it has nothing to do with my understanding. My understanding of an oversoul at this point in time is that an oversoul is let me search for just a second here. I want to use the right words. It's the oversoul facilitates the placement of individual souls in beings like you and me. I have an oversoul. You have an oversoul. The oversoul manages. I don't know. Depends upon how interesting our lives are. But the oversoul manages 10, 12, 100 of us. Okay? So when your soul decides it wants to go and incarnate into a body, it is linked up with an oversoul, and the two of them start a search. They search for a body. Now, this could be a body that's about to be birthed, or it could be an existing body, and they're going to do a walk-in. But what's more likely, it's a birth-in. And so the two of them, the oversoul and the soul, get together, and they spend some time, and they examine a lot of different families, different socioeconomic situations, different races, different regions. And so the oversoul, because it has a larger point of view, can look at different bodies in different locations and say, how about that one? How about that one? Well, no, you don't. How about that one? Do you want a female? Do you want a male? Do you want to be a father? Do you want to be a brother? Do you want to be a sister? And so they have this rather interesting ongoing conversation that results in a soul being placed in a body like yours or like mine. So that's the oversoul. And the oversoul, there's a lot of them in this planet and on other planets, of course. And they take care of allowing a soul to have experience of, I don't know, I have been told that I have had about 1,000 past lives. And I suspect, Alfred, you've probably also had a lot of past lives. And so the oversoul then manages all these different past lives and says, okay, where are we going this time? And it's a little bit like sitting down and playing a game. Okay, I guess I'd like to have some experiences as a female, and now let's see. I did really bad times. I had a tough time last time, you know. I want to go for the upper crust this time, so I'll go in as a king or a queen or something like that. That's the Oversoul, and it's a very, to me, the way it was described to me, it's very casual. It's not very scientific. It's kind of like, okay, what would you like to do? You know, what sounds like fun?
Huh. So one sort of message that comes through is that souls are intended to have a mission to raise the consciousness on the planet that they are on, specifically Earth. That is, reincarnating souls on Earth. Our mission here basically is to raise the consciousness on this planet.
Which is what you're doing.
Well, all of us.
All of us are doing that. Well, not all of us are doing that. Let's face it. Not all of us are trying to raise the consciousness. But a lot of us came here with that mission. Whether or not we're doing it is something else.
Now, who and what is Aeon? A-O-N.
Okay, here we go. Have you ever wondered for a minute, it's always been something I've always kind of wondered about, how is it that there are some extraordinary people in every society, every civilization that they come to the top? You know, is this some sort of a roulette that gets played, or, you know, is it all based upon their birth order? Is it all based on whether or not they chose the right parents? Or then you get people, you know, great people like the Dalai Lama, you know, or St. Francis of Assisi, or people like that who have risen to the top, if you will. So what causes that to differentiate them from the ordinary people? And so Aeon is part of a unique collective of oversouls. And what they do is they create what they called avatars. And that was their word. It's not my word. It's kind of an overused word, I think. But anyway, they call them avatars. And the avatars are plunked into these physical bodies with the idea that they are going to live and demonstrate the right way to live. That's who they are. And so they are set up. And of course, you know, this is done at a non-physical level, so they can see the future pretty well as to how it's going to unroll. So that's who Aeon is. And Aeon goes and has been doing this. If you look through history, there's these outstanding people. I have always wondered, you know, how do some of these people get to be more outstanding than anybody else? Is it just, you know, it's not just by chance. Something happens. So Aeon has been doing this. They've been doing it on planets all over the universe. And they have had great success at changing the upward motion of consciousness, of helping people, helping civilizations move upward. So this is their job, if you will.
Now, there was a term used together with avatar. It was exceptional being. Is there a difference between avatar and exceptional being, or was that just a different term for avatar, exceptional being?
The exceptional beings would be somebody like you, okay, who is going and raising above the norm, but they're not out going and portraying Christ consciousness and that kind of stuff on a daily basis. But you're living at a higher consciousness. You know, if you look at other members of society around you, you are doing extraordinary work. I'm doing extraordinary work. So there has to be something that makes us go and want to do this rather than sitting back watching the Super Bowl and drinking beer.
Oh, and today's Super Bowl Sunday. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Coincidentally, I had no idea when we scheduled this, right?
Yeah, I didn't either when we put it together. But anyway, so yes, there's got to be something there's something that makes you interested in extraterrestrials, something that makes you interested in all these different things you've been interested in all along, rather than, like I say, playing golf, sitting back, drinking beer, playing tennis, whatever it might be. And so, to me, then Aeon came along, and that was really the spark plug that got this book going, was Aeon saying to me, I'm the one that supplied the soul to Yeshua when he walked the planet. that got my attention. It was like, you're what? I'm the one who supplied the soul to Jesus when he was here. Now, so this puts a whole new light. Again, I'm not being religious. This is simply what I have been told. So, again, exceptional beings, avatars, whatever you want to call them, something that makes people outstanding, people dedicated to doing research, to living more than just ordinary lives, living outstanding lives. Because why is it some people come out of a really terrible upbringing, and yet they raise to the levels of a great basketball player or something like that?
Right. Well, then what happens, I find extraordinary, because like there are other books, like the Urantia book, which was, for me, had a big influence. A large part, about the last third of the Urantia book, or last quarter of it, is the life of Yeshua. And
that's right. Yes.
The New Testament is the life of Yeshua. And then here in Aeon, Voices of the Nonphysical, then, all of a sudden,
it's different.
We're given not only the life of Yeshua, but then once that's given, the consciousness of the soul of Yeshua comes in and gives personal insight. Could you sort of go in depth on that sequence?
I used to run a Urantia group. Okay.
Oh.
I lived in Boulder, Colorado, which is kind of the headquarters of the Urantia book for a lot of people.
Isn't that amazing? What a coincidence.
Yes. So I had a Urantia group. I was part of that for about 5 years. Yes, I understand.
Oh, so you were already vibrating at that. No wonder. Now I understand more.
Yeah. So I had that background. Okay. And I don't want to go into my opinions of the Urantia book, but I moved past that.
Right.
I moved past that when I got to extraterrestrials, and I moved back past that when I got to reincarnations, and now with Aeon and this information, it moves way past that. Nothing wrong with the Urantia book. I got a lot out of it. I loved it. It was great. And I just feel that this information steps up to a higher level.
Right.
Yeah. So there are no coincidences, Alfred.
Yeah. I hear you. So what does Aeon say about Yeshua?
Well, Aeon says, Yeshua says that they put together a group of relatives, knowing hundreds of years before that there was going to be a crucifixion and a resurrection. And they put together a gang of people, if you will, all these relatives. There were 144 of them at one time, that all came together knowing, male and female, knowing that there was going to be a crucifixion and a resurrection, and they willingly went forward with that plan. And Yeshua said, yes, I know, that's what I want to do, because I want to go and show people that it doesn't end there, that there is reincarnation. That was his purpose in coming here, was to show reincarnation. That, and to show, what kind of a life. If you want to really live a good life, this is a good life. I will show it to you.
Now, when I read the version of Yeshua's life and crucifixion in the book Aeon, Voices of the Nonphysicals, I found it very, very interesting because it conforms to so many of, it conforms both to the New Testament, it conforms both to the Urantia book version, and it conforms to the secret DARPA, CIA time travel documentaries that are classified top secret that went back and did time travel video documentaries of the crucifixion, including a time travel documentary that went inside the actual cave where Jesus was after the crucifixion and watched the resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been proved scientifically by DARPA, CIA, quantum access time travel. The version of Jesus' life stated in Aeon, according to a DARPA, CIA time travel whistleblower, attorney Andrew D. Bishago, excuse me, who gave me this version, which has been broadcast here over Exopolitics TV, that is congruent with the version of the crucifixion that both the Aeon being and Yeshua's being himself gives in the Aeon book. Isn't that remarkable?
It's remarkable, and the only difference, the big difference, is that this whole resurrection, the whole crucifixion was planned, well planned out. Okay? That you've got all the different players, they have all been assigned roles. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And there were, there was Joseph of Arimathea was another avatar. Mary was an avatar. They all learned ahead of time, and they all had their roles to play. It's like, okay, this is a gigantic script, and we're going to follow it. And yes, it conforms to what we have, but it doesn't conform from the standpoint that it was all planned out ahead of time. That's the big difference here. And that's a big difference.
And the Jesus who emerges, he taught from, I guess, I forget what the exact term is, whether it would be he was then walking around in his etheric body, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And he walked around for another 40 years in that etheric body.
Yeah, and he and Mary Magdalene, who was called Mary of Bethany, who was his wife, his assumed wife, had 3 children from his marriage to Mary Magdalene of Bethany, 3 children while he was married in his etheric body.
And they did that not by having intercourse, but they did it through, I got to get the right term here now. They did it through energetic. It's an energetic form that was learned. Okay, so they did it without having intercourse. So yes, they had children.
Yes. So this begins to fill in a lot of the Yeshua, Magdalene. They were in France. You know, I mean, it fills in a lot of the story that has been around Yeshua and Mary over the centuries.
Yes, there's a large area there in the south of France which celebrates, that Mary Magdalene lived there, and they still go and have a lot of people that understand that that's what happened. And they understand that, Mary Magdalene was not a harlot, that she was she grew up in a very wealthy household, and she was a good Jewish girl, and that they were married at Cana, which was their marriage ceremony, not somebody else's. To me, it fills in some holes, as you say. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, so this could be seen, Aeon, your book Aeon, Voices of the Nonphysicals. I mean, I'm just kind of stepping back. Could be seen as a revelation in the line of revelations, starting with the New Testament and the associated Gospels, then with the Urantia book, which was supposed to be the revelation of its era, and now we have Aeon, Voices of the Nonphysicals, is another revelation, correct?
It's another revelation. That's what it is. It's a revelation coming through me from these great non-physical beings, And I'm just the middleman here.
Yeah.
And I wrote down the words that they gave me. It was interesting. Mary Magdalene came to me and she said, "I want to be in this book. I want to tell my story." It was really interesting. It was like, "Okay, Mary, I'll be happy to do that."
Well, Yeshua came to you and was in the book.
Of course, yeah.
Now,
but Mary was so insistent. It was just really, really interesting.
Now, there's so much talk now. I mean, it's been highly politicized, especially in the United States, where they've made political hay of it over the last, 40, 50 years almost. The second coming. So maybe this is a form of second coming.
Well, I think more of what it is, to me, it's a encouragement that what we're supposed to do is get on with it. We're the ones that are supposed to raise the planet. It's us human beings like you and me and all the other good people out there who really have the best interests. If you take a look at the fact that everybody has a soul just like you and me, and so you see these incredible stories of these people suffering in concentration camps or on the border or in poverty and that kind of thing, they have the same soul as you and me. And one of them, if you stop and think about it, hey, that could have been my father or my mother or my brother or my sister in a past life. And that really, to me, that really gets my attention. That particular understanding that we are all the same, we're all human beings, and we all have souls that are just about similar to each other.
Yeah, and exactly. And for me also, I found that this book really added extra clarity and sort of tweaked or made clear, exactly what Yeshua's mission was on the planet, and Yeshua and Mary Magdalene's, and that sort of soul group of Essenes who came down at that time. It's just sort of super clarified it.
Yeah. Well, and he didn't want a church and all the structures and that kind of stuff with the church. That wasn't his idea. He wanted to go and say, hey, this is a good way to live. Live the way I lived. And that kind of...
Yeah, so how are you and how are we going to get that message out into this vast planet of, they say, 7,600,000,000, whatever the number of souls is out there? How are we going? I'm using the greater we, right?
Okay.
Starting with you, and then all of us who are. If this is the message, and if our mission is to help with the raising consciousness, and if we have Yeshua coming and communicating through Aeon the voices of the non-physicals, which is, I would say, technically, it may be his most recent communication since the New Testament, right? Assuming that is his voice speaking in the New Testament. How we and look how the New Testament got spread, right? Whatever its distortions through the church. So how are we going to get the aeons of the voices of the non-physicals out?
The best answer,
using we in kind of a diffuse sense.
Yeah, best answer I can give you is one book at a time, and one interview at a time, and it's slowly beginning to go and occur to people that there's a lot of information here, and it's a new way to look at things. What the book is, it's about looking at Earth from the perspective of someone who isn't part of Earth. Because so many other books that are written by people that are looking at Earth and then looking upward. This is looking downward onto Earth.
Right.
I'm not being critical of other people's works, understand. That's not the issue here. It's just that this is new information. It really is. Dramatically new.
It's a different dimension. Now, Aeon then goes on to bring in the ascended masters, voices of ascended masters. What is an ascended master?
An avatar. An avatar that's had several lives. And if you look at this Master Kasumi, I believe that he was St. Francis of Assisi. And so he has moved not only on this planet, but other planets into different lifetimes as an avatar. And so he's giving us the benefit of what it was like to live as an avatar and what he received from that. So that's his conclusions, if you will. You have done a remarkable job, Alfred, of really looking at this book. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, well, I'm just getting started. And it's quite a personal book because the book goes on to talk about the physical body, the etheric body, the mental body, the emotional body, and the causal body.
That's right.
Could you tell us about those?
Well, you can see the limits of your physical body. Everybody knows what the limits of the physical body are. Surrounding our physical bodies is something called an emotional body. Surrounding that is a mental body. Surrounding that is an etheric body. And in the etheric body are the chakras. There's a lot of the Eastern religions that know about chakras. A lot of people are talking about chakras and how important they are. That's in the etheric body. The causal body is another layer that surrounds you, and that's where the memories are stored. Now, these are non-physical bodies I'm talking about. Mental, emotional, etheric, causal body. And then, of course, you have the soul, which is on top of that. So you have something that looks like it is several times the size of your physical body. That's who you really are. You're a real large character.
And the Archangel Michael
Yes?
makes an appearance.
Archangel Michael is the same guy that's in in the Bible, if you will, except this is Archangel Michael, the real Archangel Michael. And, you know, he's offered to be part of this interview. And he's saying, okay, Mark, let's talk some more about this. And I'm saying, okay. Michael was created from the very outset, one of the very first creations. Archangel Michael has the ability to go and to interact, to communicate with people whenever he feels like it. He's the one who is in charge of the energies of the universe. So he's a really powerful guy. And so what is in the book Aeon is his, and he has several pages there which kind of wrap up what the others have said in terms of, okay, this is what Aeon said, this is what Yeshua said. And then he goes on to say, look in the mirror. You are a reflection in that mirror of a great soul that incarnated 1,000 times. He said that to me. Look at a human struggling. That soul of that human is the same as your soul. It could have been your mother, father, sister, brother. Then he says, the words of this book, the way I helped you put together this book, they carry energy. So that when you are reading this book, you are receiving energies. And I find that interesting. I can go and read. I think we've all read a passage, you know, and it has real meaning to us. And so that's what's going on here.
And there are even guided meditations in this book, I noticed.
There is a guided meditation by Master Kasumi, yes. Yes. And if you go on my website, you know, there are other guided meditations there. There's a couple hundred channels information from various extraterrestrials and other non-physicals. So in terms of
how can people reach your website? What is it?
markkimmel.com. Very easy. It's markkimmel.com. It will take you to a website. The bigger website is called Cosmic Paradigm, but markkimmel.com will get you there. And I've had, I don't know how, but when I first put that website up, they said, all right, the name we want you to use is Cosmic Paradigm. And, you know, I was back there dealing with extraterrestrials, but now I'm dealing with non-physicals, and Cosmic Paradigm is really a good description of what I do.
So what's the difference between CosmicParadigm.com and MarkKimmel.com?
They both go to the same place.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they'll get you there.
I see.
Yeah, and you can buy books there, and there is there's several thousand pages of information at that website.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, maybe let's say several hundred pages. Let's keep it simple.
We've come to the magic 60-minute mark. Is there anything any things that you had wanted to say that you haven't had an opportunity to say or bring up yet? Mark, in this interview?
Yes, what I would say is I would like help in terms of getting the information that is in Aeon out to people, because I think it's very important information, as you and I have discussed, Alfred, and I would like help. I'm not charging a lot of money. I'm not doing this because I want to get rich. I'm doing it because I have a mission to get this information out to as many people as possible. And I'm very open to suggestions, very humble. Just give me your suggestions, folks. I'm happy to work with you.
And what would that help look like?
I'm open. I don't know what that would look like, Alfred. I do interviews, I do workshops, I sell books, and that's all fine. I'm looking for other ways to make this happen, and I'm open to what that might be.
You know, it's so interesting because when you think about it, right after Yeshua's coming here, and it says so in your book Aeon, or Yeshua says so, and Aeon, and the Aeon represent, the Aeon person writing about Yeshua says so, that Aeon's life happened, and then the churches came and took the life over and took it off for their purposes, right?
Exactly.
Which weren't exactly Yeshua's purposes.
Exactly.
And now we have Yeshua coming in again and repeating what his life was about in the context of the voices of the non-physicals. So when you say you need help, it's important to remember not to repeat the errors of what happened when the church took over the first coming of Yeshua, correct?
Correct. I have insisted over and over again, I do not want to be a guru. Okay? I don't want to go and become someone that people go and pay. I want them to see the message. I don't want them to honor me, the Mark Kimmel. And that's what I need help with. I'm being very open with that.
So it's really getting into the persona of Yeshua, that soul. It's actually the energy of the soul of Yeshua and that incarnation, right?
Correct.
Now, how can people access the energy of the soul of Yeshua when he's no longer here in the flesh? Is there a possibility of doing that? How does that happen?
I think that's a very good question. I believe that it's my understanding that everybody has the ability to connect directly with Yeshua, that he will make himself available. Now, the trick is to believe that you can do that, to believe that you can actually do that. That's believing, that's the same as believing you can connect with God, with Source. You can do that. When I got started on this way back when, I had a good friend and we were out to lunch, and all of a sudden she started coming and had someone come in through her. And I said, if she can do that, then I can do that. And then all of a sudden it began. And that's how it started for me. Now, it didn't start with paragraphs and books and all that kind of stuff, but it started with little dabs, a concept, a word, that type of thing. And it's my belief that anybody can do that if they believe it and if they go and find quiet time. Get away from the busyness of life. Find some quiet time and then just open your mind and say, I would like this to happen, and I believe you can make it happen.
The peace that passeth understanding.
Indeed, indeed.
Are there any thoughts that you would like to leave
No, I
us
think
with? Or?
the book is available on Amazon.com. It's available in print. It's available in Kindle. I would love to sell some books. That's fine. My mission here is not so much worrying about how many books I sell, but how effective I am at getting the word out. So again, I'm open to suggestions. Whoever among your listeners and viewers, and readers, hey, I'd like to have suggestions on how to go and get the word out without having to become, I don't want to be in charge of this. I just want the word out there.
Right. Well, needless to say, we look forward to your returning as events, as time unfolds, and perhaps as the path develops for the second appearance and the second path of Yeshua. And more, because who knows who's going to visit you as well. But certainly this is extraordinarily important. And I understand at a very deep level now the technical interference by the infected forces that we had at the beginning of this interview.
Well, you can understand why we had some interference.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Which, and it's to me, it's tied to Yeshua. And the fact that vibration, it just threatens their infection. And it's transpersonal. It's not personal. It's just, shame on them. They should just raise their vibration and get rid of the infection, because that's what we're here for.
I hope you have better luck at getting this onto YouTube than we had in terms of getting together.
I don't think there'll be any problem.
I don't think so. Alfred, this has been a great pleasure. You are a great human being.
Oh,
I value
and you as well.
This time. I value our time together. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your returning again in the future.
We'll see if we can make that happen.
So thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been my great pleasure.
Great.
Bye for now.